Mid-level professionals don't stall because they lack skill, they stall because their value stays invisible. The work gets done, but the story doesn't land, and most of the organizations grow in awarding the people who cannot communicate, impact, influence decisions, and lead rooms, not just executives influence, but also just tasks, executing tasks. Hybrid work fast challenges roles, and AI enabled productivity are raising the bar. Out, Output is alone not a differentiator anymore. The differentiator is an executive presence, clear understanding of the pressure, the ability to lead through communications up and across the clients. Today, we have Shilpa Srinivasan, a transformational communication coach and a founder of Self Academy, who helps mid level professionals break communication barriers, build executive presence, unlock career momentum, communicate barriers, build executive presence, and with practical frameworks, create real outcomes, confident, respect, and fast progress. Before we dive into the topic, let's have a small video about of Power of Knowing Forum. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forum. Let's bring our esteemed guest to the podcast and dive into the topic.
Thank you, Prem Kumar sir.
Hi, Shilpaji. Welcome to our podcast. How are you today? Good
Thank you
evening.
so much. I'm doing great. How about you?
Good, madam. Madam, a small intro about yourself and your journey over the years of your work.
Okay. First of all, thanks for inviting me on this podcast. It's an honor and privilege having this conversation with you. In fact, I've been longing to do this, and today we are here. That's absolutely great. It feels great. Well, talking a little bit about me, yes, I have been in this training industry from 13 years. I am Shilpa Srinivas from Bangalore, and I come from a very humble middle class family, studied in a very ordinary school, just like any one of you who are listening to this podcast. Then I moved to London. I was there for 7 years. I have got international work experience. And during the journey, I realized that communication is very, very important in your professional growth. And when I came back to India for good, this is where I felt that there is a need to bridge this gap. Fortunately, I was introduced into the training industry by my mentor. And then I started traveling all across India to different cities to deliver my training programs to various categories of working professionals, and thereby felt that deep satisfaction when I brought about the transformation in people. And during COVID, it was the boom of online era, and I started my own academy called Self actually stands for Speak English Language Fluently, but it's more of deep diving into yourself, understanding communication, understanding the communication within you, the conversations which are happening inside you, whereby you can establish a rapport with others. So that's how it started. And today we are here having transformed and helped thousands of working professionals, not just across different states in India, but also in different parts of the globe. We have students from 11 plus different countries, and my niche is catering to mid-level working professionals between 10 plus years to 25, 30 plus years. And my mission is to touch at least 1 million working professionals in this journey. And in this in achieving my mission, I think this is also playing a very huge part where I can reach out to people who are in need of this. So once again, thanks for inviting me here.
Come Srinivas, that's great pointers. There's a lot big journey I think you've been going through, and it's honor to have you here. Let's dive into the topic and start looking at uh, with true people don't want to hear why strong performers still get overlooked.
Still get, what was it? Get
Overlooked,
overlooked.
yeah,
Strong performance, why do they get overlooked? Yes,
yes.
that's an interesting question. And yes, there's an uncomfortable truth to it, which I want to reveal. Most of them, working professionals, especially in their mid level, they think that their work speaks for itself,
Hmm,
and they start working hard, putting more hours into their job. And at Self Academy, we call them as the hiders. They want to hide behind their work, and they feel work speaks for itself, because if I start talking about my work, it's about bragging. And we have this
hmm.
mindset in our society that we are not supposed to brag about our work. So when you have this kind of hider mindset, you don't feel like talking about your work. So that is where you are not communicating effectively, and that becomes a huge gap. The gap between your real self and the value you add. This we call as the visibility gap. And this costs very dearly to most of the professionals. They have to start speaking about their job and communicating effectively, which is where they feel heard and seen. And there is actually, a structure in doing so. Rather
Hmm.
than talking about what are the tasks they are doing, they have to talk about the outcomes they have delivered. That is the uncomfortable truth which I was talking about. Your work is real. As a person, you're very hardworking. But the truth is, you need to talk about it, and you have to speak about the outcome which you have brought about, right? And also, do not focus too much on execution. Don't be a doer,
Hmm.
right? Try to focus on the outcomes which you have delivered rather than naming the tasks which you have covered, right? And to most of the working professionals who are watching this, do not confuse your hard work with visibility. Your hard work is not equivalent to this. You need to talk about it. And this is the visibility gap we have to bridge.
Great pointers there, because I think most of the people think hard work is most important thing and they put all the efforts, but they don't see results. And that's where the whole structure changes when we talk about how exactly they are not getting recognized, right? Now, why do mid-level careers stall even when the work quality is very strong?
Exactly. Again, they talk about activities, what they have been doing. So they need to ask themselves these questions. When I attend a meeting and when I ask people to deliver a task, are they really acting upon it? And when I talk to the leadership level, am I talking about the impact which I have created, or am I just giving them the tasks which I have completed? And one of the most important question is, what are people talking about even when I'm not there in the room about me? So when you have answers to these three questions, then definitely you will get an answer that why is your work getting stalled. Again, I would like to reiterate on that point. Do not talk about the task list, because at leadership level, people want to remember about you, want to repeat what you have done, right? So you have to portray your outcome in such a way so that the leadership can remember, and so that they can repeat it to others what you have done. And when you create that kind of outcomes, definitely you will not feel stalled. Your work will not feel stalled. So ask yourself these three questions.
Very important point is right, ask the right questions is what you're saying when we talk about. And
Exactly.
when you have to get recognized also, you are what you're saying is you need to look at how do you get recognized when your work is getting reviewed, because we are still in that old mindset of the quarterly and yearly feedback, and once the feedback comes, then they get to know that they are not performing or getting recognized.
Right.
Ask for feedback when
Hmm.
you do a task, and if there is a failure or there is an issue, go talk to them and find out whether I can do something where I can change this. That becomes a very important point, is what I am trying to get when you say, what are the three top invisible mistakes strong performers make that block growth?
Exactly. They again need not talk about the tasks or the activities they are performing. This is what I did in the last quarter. Rather,
Mm.
this is the outcome which happened because of the task which I did in the last quarter. These are the results which I got. When you get to the point and when you start with results, you start getting noticed. So, that is the first thing, the first task which you have to do. Don't talk about a list, because performers, they want you to think very strategically. They want you to think as if you're already in the next level. So think from their perspective and answer it in that way where you portray the outcomes and not just the task list, right? And don't act like a doer. I have done this, I
Mm.
have done that, and this is what was the case. No. uh, and the third most important thing is, do not wait for your hard work to get noticed. You're putting in a lot of extra hours in your work, and you're doing extra shifts. That doesn't mean that it will create visibility for you. In fact, you are sending a signal that it's okay for someone to take you for granted because you're so hardworking and you don't want to talk about it. The world doesn't reward silent competence, right? The world wants visible competence. Can you create that visibility through your communication? That is the need of the hour. The world wants only powerful people who can create that visible competence. So you can't wait to be heard, you can't wait to get noticed. You have to do it for yourself by learning how to communicate it in a powerful way.
Very important pointers that you are giving, Shilpa. It's great to see that we get those kind of inputs where people are able to understand and able to look at how they have to perform and showcase their work also, because showcasing work is a very important point where every uh, person, whether he is a leader or a starter, has to show that he is capable of doing things, and this is his capability. That makes it very simpler for them to get the curve out, saying that I did, and end of the day I was not recognized, right? So
Sure.
that's where we see that. Now, how can someone diagnose whether the stall is a skill, communication, or positioning?
Sorry, stalling is a skill or?
Stall is a skill, whether, how can somebody diagnose, right, whether the stall is the skill, one, or communication is the second pointer, and the third pointer is the positioning. How do they look at?
Positioning is what matters. How do you position your thought? And that has to be done with effective communication. Otherwise, your work is stalled. So you have to position yourself in in fact, not just communication, you have to use the powerful vocabulary when you communicate.
Hmm.
Otherwise, your work is stalled, right? So positioning yourself in such a way where you use the exact phrases where it creates that impact in the minds of the people who are sitting in the meeting. Most of the professionals, or in general, most of them feel that I'm good at communication if I know how to speak well, if I can speak fluently. Well, that's a big, big misconception, right? If you want to position yourself well, you need to understand how you're perceived by the listener. So, if you are perceived in the right way by the people sitting in the room, then yes, you know how to position yourself well by using the powerful vocabulary, by using the right words at the right time in front of the right person.
So what we are saying is fame isn't a performance, it's a performance in necessity, is what I think. No sufficient, not sufficient. Introduce a simple diagnostics, visible influence, and leadership communication. So good work gets noticed sometimes, clear communication gets it rewarded
It's
consistently
rewarded.
visible. What you are
Exactly.
saying?
That's right.
What is the
That's right.
number one communication gap between mid-level and senior leaders?
Yeah, that's a good one. If you're sitting in a room where mid level working professionals and seniors are sitting in the same room, the most visible difference you find is not that senior professionals they communicate more, but they communicate
Hmm.
very differently. For example, if a mid level working professional wants to put across a point, he starts with the context.
Okay.
This is what I think. Maybe we can try this because this is what happened last time. And now, finally, looking at the results of the last quarter, this is what I would like to suggest because I feel. Do you see the kind of sentence structuring which is happening by a mid level working professional? That is because he's putting the context first. But how does a senior professional does the same thing differently? He would get straight to the point. For example, I'll give you a framework which we coach our in our program Speak to Succeed. It's called the PAIL framework. PAIL. P stands for point. They get to the point, straight to the point first. Because if you start communicating about the context first, by the time you arrive at the point, you would have lost the listeners. The attention span is very less, right? The attention would have gone away. So you would have missed out on it. So get to the point first. P stands for point, and A stands for you are anchoring it. You are anchoring the point to the goal. What is the goal of this meeting? What is the common goal which we are all sharing? So you are putting the point and anchoring it to the goal. And then I stands for illustration. You give an example that why is it that you're making this point and how is it connected to the goal. And then L for landing. Is it landing well? So, what is the next action they need to take? It is very clear, very structured, and you can hold the attention span of all the people present in the room. This is how senior leaders communicate. And this is the gap again which we see, which is very common between mid levels and the senior levels. So, get straight to the point. They speak very differently. It is the same sentence, but they do it differently. So you will immediately observe the entire room shifts. The way they respond to you, that shifts. So I would recommend all of you who are watching this, the mid levels especially, apply this framework consistently for 1 week in your meetings. PAIL. And you will see the enormous shift in the way people react to you. Get to the point first. And another point I would like to add whenever you're talking about the point, do not use sentence structures like I think, I feel, maybe, just so. This comes across as if you are filled with self doubts and you're very unsure about what you're speaking, right? So, based on this, that's a powerful one. Or I recommend, and I choose option A or I choose option B. So you are leading with decisions and you're very clear about your thoughts. So when you start with phrases like this, you sound like as if you're 10 years senior overnight. So if you practice this framework PAIL, point, anchor, illustration, and landing, definitely the way people respond to you will shift overnight.
Very, very informative points that I'm getting from you, Shilpa. Great here. Now, often executive communication differs, right? When they speak to the junior level, the senior level, and stuff. How does executive communication differ from team level communication to the executive level communication?
Exactly. This is what I said. When mid levels speak, they are very unsure. They start using these phrases and they feel uh, less confident to put across their point because they don't want to be the flag bearer of, taking the fury of the senior leaders. So they try and put across just so if we can make some tweaks, maybe we can try this. I think, or as I was thinking, and using fillers. Actually, basically, usually. So that shifts the entire attention and it is sending a signal to the listeners that you are unsure about yourself. Again, there is a huge difference in the confidence, their approach to the point where they put across. Now, senior leaders are very confident. Mid levels, when they start off with such phrases, they come across as underconfident. That is the difference which we find. And the vocabulary has to shift. Stop using such unsure words and start using some powerful phrases. This is what at Self Academy we make them do practically. We don't just teach them theoretically, we make them do it. We conduct those meetings inside the course, inside the program, and we make them do it so that they get to try in that test pitch. Once they go to the real life environment, they don't have time to practice, right? You can't practice in a meeting. So we make them practice there so that they're ready for the real life scenarios.
So I think what we see is there's a definitely a different way that you communicate when you talk to the team, and you go at their level and talk, right? When you talk to the board level, you go and talk to the board level speaking, how the pointers are to be mentioned, because the team understands their language better when a leader
Hmm.
speaks. But when the board needs a different kind of understanding, where boards talk about how are the numbers looking, what are the challenges that we are facing, how
True.
are things going to be stopping our business from growing, these numbers is what the board should look. I think the leader should make that shift, is what you're saying. Now
Right.
we need to create a kind of instant presence from the leadership. So
Hmm.
what is one shift that creates that instant seniorship presence there? Your pointers there.
Exactly. The very presence, when you go and sit there in the meeting and you want to sound like a person with that confidence and conviction, deliver it with preparation. Whenever you're getting into a meeting, always prepare well. When you're not prepared, that confidence and conviction will not come across. So your presence will not be felt. Your voice, very simple tip which I want to give. Whenever you speak in meetings, just raise your voice a little bit. You don't have to sound too loud, but you should not have a very meek voice. And most of the people have their identity story, the story behind why they are and why do they do what they do. This is how I have always been. This is how I speak. I am like this. I'm a very shy person. I'm an introvert. I cannot speak up in meetings. So these kind of stories, they start becoming your reality. You start accepting it wherever you go. So the very first thing or a very small tip which I want to give, which you can immediately adopt, is whenever you want your presence to be felt, and when you are in that leadership meeting, raise your voice a little bit. That comes across as confidence. And speak with clarity. Do not rush through the sentences, do not rush through the matter as if you just want to finish it off and run away from there. Unknowingly, you are sending that signals of nervousness to others. You're showing them that you're very anxious, you just want to finish it off. So slow down a little bit, speak with clarity, and raise your voice a little bit, maybe by 10%. If you practice this consistently, just as you told a while before, it communication gets rewarded when something is done consistently. When you try and do this consistently, you will see it is getting rewarded. You will feel heard. You will feel seen. So, this is one shift which maybe you can bring about immediately.
Shilpa. So very very important point again. Now what you are saying is emphasize brevity, structured decision orientation, and business outcomes. Teach point first, proof second, ask clear. Right? That's what you are trying to
That's what
communicate.
I,
Now
yes,
what seniority is often heard before it is earned, right? And through communication patterns, how do the leader communicate? Where does he come from? What is his viewpoint? What is his experience, right? That's the whole point. How do people communicate impact instead of an activity?
beautiful. As I was mentioning, yes, many of the mid levels are used to communicating activities, the tasks they have completed. And if you have to shift that, definitely there is a four-word secret which I want to reveal to everybody. Keep this word: so what and now what. So what and now what. For example, you have presented your idea in a meeting in front of leadership. They have listened to you. And the question, if they ask you, is so what? Do you have an answer to that? If you have an answer to that question, so what? Then yes, you are communicating impact and not activity. And then they would ask, now what? Now that they're convinced, they'll ask you, now what? What is the next step? And for that, if you have an answer, that is what defines that you are actually communicating impact and not activity. So keep this four words. It's a secret mantra, what I would say. So what, now what? Have answers to this before you present your ideas. If you have answers, then definitely you have moved from activity to impact.
Very, very clear pointers there. What's the simple framework to convert tasks into outcomes from leadership updates?
Exactly. See, here again, these are the same things. Go for the point first and tell them the outcome, how it can be linked to the revenue. Sometimes, see, I would also want to give you, some of them say they cannot quantify the results, the outcomes, what they're talking about. Not in all scenarios. In certain scenarios, it can be quantified. So, where you do not know how to quantify the outcomes, I would recommend there are always four things which you can quantify. How much time you have saved by bringing out this outcome or by planning out this outcome, and how much risk you have avoided, how good relationships you have built, right? So if you try and quantify these kind of options, then definitely the outcomes can be rewarded. That is one shift. Whenever you're talking about the outcome, try and quantify the results. It needs to be heard.
Thank you for that, Shilpa. Now, coming to the next point, how do we quantify impact when work is not directly revenue linked? Because most of the outcomes are linked to the number of hours saved, the number of time saved in terms of resources, then the number of the cost which can be also looked at, the revenue that is there linked to the
Right.
outcome. How do you look at that, Shilpa?
Exactly. This again comes, I mean, I've already answered this because I come across such situations almost every day. Shilpa, ma'am, what do we do when we cannot quantify the results?
Hmm.
You would have saved the time by applying your new strategy. You would have reduced the risks, or you would have enabled some decisions to be made, which would have been very important. And you would have built some better relationships with the vendors, with the clients. So, talk about these aspects, and you can definitely quantify when you look into these four factors. And yes, the shift happens. So, this is how you can convey, impact versus activity.
So what you are saying is you take a problem, you action upon it, bring the outcome, you ask or what is the next risk, and offer examples of op, tech, cyber or cross functional roles, right? So that is that. If you if you update sounds like to do list, your promotion will wait.
Exactly. So that's the PAON framework you're talking about. Talk
Yeah.
about the problem which you have solved and
Yeah.
what are the outcomes which has been delivered after solving the problem, and then what is the action you took to solve that problem, and what is the next action. The ask which you are doing has to be very very clear. So
Mm.
if you apply this formula, again it will bring about a shift. PAON. We spoke about PAIL in our
Okay.
previous question. Here we can focus on the frameworks. See, frameworks are the one which is going to bring an enormous transformation in the way you communicate. Remember, it's very easy to follow these frameworks. Talk about the problem, talk about the action which you have taken to solve this problem, talk about the outcomes, and talk about the ask, the next ask, which has to be very clear with the leadership. PAON framework. Wonderful.
Thank you for that. Now, why do capable professionals freeze in meetings? Because we've seen them, and how do they fix that? Most of the time, they have the answers, but they get freezed.
Right. Again, capability is not equivalent to confidence. They confuse it to confidence. Now, there are three main root causes for this. It is actually a preparation problem. If you haven't prepared well, then yes, you freeze in meetings. And what are the three main root causes for this? Number one is fear of judgment. 9 out of 10 people have this. We all have this. What if I'm making a mistake by putting across my point in the meeting like this? What if I'm repeating the same point what somebody else has already shared? What if I'm not valued? My idea is not valued. So, this little voice inside your brain is having this chatter all the time. And because of this fear of judgment, you freeze. While you are having all these conversations, somebody else who is having a half baked idea, who is not even as prepared as you would have prepared for it in your shower room, inside the car, so many times before coming to the meeting in your head, right? So, if you're thinking about all of these things, what if I'm making a mistake? What if people don't value me? What if it's not the right time to say this? And all these things, somebody else would have presented the same idea even more underprepared than you, and the whole room would have responded to it. So you are there thinking and regretting about wish you had shared that, right? So that fear of judgment is the number one thing why people freeze in meetings. It's really hard to overcome that. It's not as easy as it is said. We use some special NLP techniques at Self Academy to help them overcome that fear from the grassroots level, because it would have been there within them from a very long time. For some, it would have been a childhood trauma, not being able to speak in front of audience. Even if it is 3 4 people, it is audience, so they would not be able to do it. And people also have a misconception that I cannot speak in public doesn't mean that they have to speak in front of a huge audience. Even in speaking in front of one person who is a stranger, who is an outsider, it is very difficult for most of them. So in meetings, of course, you will have known people, unknown people, and points, all of this. So you freeze because of this fear of judgment. That is the number one reason. Now, the second reason is they wouldn't have structured their message. They have got too many thoughts. It's getting jammed. They don't know which one to put first and which one will follow after that, and how to conclude it. When your thoughts are not structured, you ramble across. And when you're rambling, all right. When you're rambling, then definitely, because there is no structure, you will freeze in meetings, right? So you're thinking in your head, maybe I should go for this first, maybe I should speak about it next. If you have practiced well enough to speak in meetings, I keep telling at Self Academy, speaking up is just like practicing cricket. If you don't practice with your bat and ball, and if you feel like you're going on the field, and because you have watched 100 different test matches or 100 different ODIs, if you think you're going to perform well, it's never going to happen, right? That is so untrue. You need to practice. In the same way, if you are thinking of speaking up in meetings, you need to practice it with the muscles of your mouth. Suddenly, your mouth goes dry, your voice freezes, words don't come out. All these things happen because you haven't physically practiced. And there is no structure. Mentally, you would have prepared, but you haven't practiced throughout, and the structure is getting jammed. So, that is the second most uh, widely shared reason with me that why do people freeze in meetings. And the third one is you have not, even though maybe you have prepared a little bit, but you have not prepared with the right intention about adding value, right? You're thinking about, am I speaking the perfect sentence? Am I putting across the right point? So you're focusing on the words and sentences rather than the intention.
Shilpa. So what we are saying is
Yeah,
unprepared meetings will make you freeze. As simple as that is what you are saying.
correct.
What triggers silence? Fear of judgment, lack of structure, and low confidence.
100%.
Right. So coming to the next point, what is the pre-meeting preparation routine that changes performance?
That's a wonderful question. So, I would recommend everybody before you get into the meeting, at least have these three key points where you can prepare for that. One question, what you can ask, one recommendation, which you can give, and one clear ask. So, if you have prepared for these three key points, one question, one recommendation, and one clear ask, then definitely you would have prepared. At least for a 60 minutes meeting, the minimum preparation you need to do is 10 minutes. And if prepared for that, then definitely confidence will follow. You will not freeze in meetings.
Okay, good pointers there. Okay, now what you are saying is give a practical routine, maybe three pointers, one question, a recommendation, ask for emphasized rehearsals, and intention. So confidence is not a personality trait, it's a preparation habit is what you're saying. And with that,
100%.
I have an important point which I wanted to, what is executive presence when and how can somebody build without faking it? Because most of the people try to fake it, right?
That's again a wonderful question. Executive presence, again, most people confuse it with wearing a business suit and a tie and sitting in the meeting room, having a very dominant personality, or speaking very loudly, things like that. That's again faking executive presence. Now, you have to build that influence and not just authority. Authority is not a skill, right? But influence is a skill that can be built. And how do you build that? Three main pillars. Number one is clarity. You need to have clarity in your speech. Whatever you're talking, it needs to be brevity, again with clarity. Let it be crisp, concise, and clear. Okay, we talk about the seven C's of communication. So, all this comes under that. We need to follow whatever we are speaking, is it having clarity? Not being vague. If you are vague and unsure about what you are speaking, how will people respond to it? So that builds the authority. You need to have clarity. And the second thing is you need to have authenticity. You need to be 100% sure about what you're putting across. Only when you're sure, when you have that confidence, then put it across. Be your true self. So have that authenticity. And the third thing is composure. Have that presence felt. When you speak with that composure and calmness, the people in the room will feel that they are in safe hands, they are in capable hands. So, when you make people feel like that when you speak, then yes, definitely you're carrying that executive presence. Of course, there are some physical modalities to it, your pace, your pause, and the structure. Number one, pace. I think I touched upon this point a little while ago. If you speak again very fast, people have lost you. You're thinking that you know too many things, you have prepared for this well, and you speak very fast. The reason being, maybe you're feeling a little nervous, you want to finish it off, or that is your original style of speaking. But you have lost the audience. Your presence is not felt. You're being too fast. So pace your words properly. Don't go very slow, don't go very fast. Pace it moderately. And the next thing is pause. Pause, probably, if you give me that topic, I can talk it for one full day. Element of communication needs to adopt. Most of them think without taking, I come across as a very versatile speaker, very effective speaker. It's not so. If you observe great speakers, they pause in, and I'll tell you one almost every day when I communicate my mid-level working professionals whom I coach. They don't want to pause. They don't want to give that short pause in between while they speak, and they try to fill that pause with unnecessary fillers, repetitive fillers. We all use fillers. Some of the common examples are, so I want to do this, so I came here, so I delivered. You are repeating the same filler so multiple times unconsciously. Or it can be another word like, you know, usually, actually. These are the common fillers which most of them repeatedly use. What happens when you try to fill the gap with fillers? You come across as a very unsure person, underconfident person, and people perceive you that you don't have that authority over what you speak. You're actually using that because you're unconsciously doing it. You're not even aware, it has become a habit for you. You haven't worked upon it. So become self aware of the pauses. Replace those fillers with a 2 seconds silence, just a 2 seconds pause, and just observe the shift it brings about. And I'll just give you two powerful pointers. When should you pause? Whenever you are asked a question, just pause for 1 second or two beats, just like one, two. Practice that. One, two. Just give a pause and then start speaking. It is very powerful because you've got 2 seconds to think about what you need to answer rather than starting with, okay, again, you're sounding very unsure. And if you observe, great speakers never do that. So, pause is very powerful. Then you replace the fillers, the unnecessary repetitive fillers, with silence. And silence is golden. Do not have this misconception that I'm not supposed to go silent in between. I have to continuously speak. You come across again as a very nervous and unsure person. And the second place, I told you I'm going to give you two powerful pointers. One is when you're asked a question, you need to pause. The second thing is when you ask a question. When you ask a question, just pause. Okay, I would like to know about this because if you continue even after the question, the power of the question is lost. The intention of that moment is lost. So make your pauses powerful. Practice that. So one is space, one is pause, and the third one is how you frame your talk. As I told you, don't ramble it up, don't jumble words, too many thoughts together. Just structure it, have some frameworks. Try and adopt the frameworks which we discussed today here on podcast. The PAON framework, the PAIL framework. When you structure your thoughts accordingly, definitely your framing is good. The structure is good and your presence is felt. So this is how you need to follow executive presence.
Wonderful. I think I am getting a lot of insights for my own leadership styles, Shilpa here. Thank you for that. Now, now, if you have to put a habit, it takes some time, right? And with that, what is the daily micro practices built presence in next 30 days? What could be those?
Wonderful. I was hoping to share this, and you asked me the right question. Well, the next 30 days, some of the micro habits which you can practice is, as I told you, become aware of the fillers you're using. I've seen sometimes in a minute's time, in a minute's conversation, a person would have used more than 12 to 15 times of the same filler unknowingly. So try and become aware of the fillers that you regularly use. Okay? And once you are aware, try and replace that filler with silence. If you feel awkward to replace it directly with silence, I would like to give you another small tip. Replace that filler with other fillers. Keep a set of fillers with you. Maybe five fillers with you. Sometimes you use so, sometimes you use like. The next time you use then you say usually. right? So you have a set of fillers and replace these fillers every time so that the person who is sitting next to you doesn't get bored and he's actually confused because you are replacing the fillers. Okay, so try and practice this. Adopt this after you become self aware of the fillers you're using. See if you can replace it with other fillers or see if you can replace it with silence. That's actually golden. Just give a small pause and then continue. That is the number one micro habit, which, if you follow for 30 days, will 100% give results. The second one is take a pause, a 2 minutes, a 2 beat pause, a 2 seconds pause before you answer any of the question or before you start your conversation. Just one, two. Do it very consciously for the next 30 days. Practice taking this micro pause before you start any conversation. It will yield enormous results. And the third one, if you start recording your conversations in the meetings, you will have observed how fast you speak sometimes. So, deliberately and consciously slow down your pace at least by 10%, 10 to 20%. If you are a very fast speaker, slow down to 20% because ekdam all of a sudden you cannot change, and it would be wonderful for you to record the conversation in the meeting so that you become aware of how fast you speak. And then if you practice this and inculcate this micro habit of slowing down the pace, again record your conversation in the meeting. When you compare the previous recording with the current one, you will be amazed at the shift. You will be astonished. So these three micro habits consistently, if it is practiced for 30 days, you will 100% be rewarded.
What we are saying is focus on authenticity, clarity, right? Composure. Suggest a voice based control, right? Which
Yes,
I think when you put pointers, the tone matters is what you're saying. And you may raise the tone, but it should not be an offensive tone, right? But it should be a pause practice where you are giving a thought of what you want to say and calibrating it so that it does not feel offended. It goes in a direct way, and concise framing is what you're trying. I've seen Steve Jobs taking that pause in many of the pointers which I referred to in my
absolutely.
earlier
Yes,
discussions. He takes a pause for a minute and then he answers. The
right.
answers are amazing, right? So I think that's the pause that we should look at. Executive presence isn't loudness, it is calm clarity that moves decisions, is what I would like to say when you look at executive presence. One last question for today's session: how should mid-level professionals speak to seniors without sounding defensive or junior?
Wonderful. Beautiful. See, the language which mid levels speak most of the time, it sounds like the language of permission. Rather, if they switch to language of recommendation, right? That shift between language of permission versus language of recommendation. As I was telling, if you can start your sentences with, I recommend, based on this data, I suggest option B. So when you start your sentences, it sounds like language of recommendation. Or otherwise, if you say, oh, I apologize for whatever happened. I think that last quarter we were not able to deliver results. Maybe we need to change this. These are the words which definitely has to change. The language has to change, and you can definitely sound like a senior. I tell you, you will start sounding like a senior just overnight if you practice this. And when you observe seniors speaking, there is a full stop. They recommend this and they give you the option, recommendation, option. That's it. After that, there is a pause, there is a full stop. They do not over explain things and there is no hedging, right? They don't over explain the same point again and again in different words. So that's how the senior professionals communicate. I think all mid levels need to adopt this. You have to change the language from permission to recommendation. Then definitely that shift will happen automatically.
Thank you, very Shilpa. I I have summarized some of the pointers that we discussed in the last 40 minutes of our discussion. So I would like to say one of the few pointers that I want to take away from this session myself. Strong work can still be invisible. Career growth needs clarity, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Positioning and decision oriented communication is very important, right? Executive communication is the point first, outcome led, and ask clear pointers that recommendation, rational, risk, and next steps are pointers that you need to ask when you want to get into any senior level or a junior asking a senior also. These pointers are very important. Confidence grows through preparation routines. Structure your points. Rehearse is what you said as many times as you said, and show the calm and clarity pointers that we should look at when we look at executive presence. Right?
Right.
Executive presence is built with micro practices. It does not come overnight, and it needs lot of practice.
Yes.
And you test it out for yourself. You need to put it as a pause, you need to put as a pace, framing, and composure under the pressure. Because when you are in the pressurized situations, you either burst out or
Right.
you lose control, right? So
Right.
burst out and control are kind of same, but bursting out without having a control on what you are telling is dangerous, is what we are saying. A 90-day plan, weekly measurement turns communication to growth engine. See, put pointers. You will start with why week one you will do this set of activities. Week two you will do set of activities, and that's how the whole things can be streamlined. Is what you are saying. How why mid-level careers still even without strong work the communication is a fix. That's the point that we wanted to look at.
Correct.
Any final pointers that you want to communicate before we close the session, Shilpa?
Wonderful. You just summarized it very well. I would like to reiterate on that point. See, the magic happens when you slow down with your thoughts, with your pace, and with the pause. When you slow down, people's attention will speed up.
Hmm.
So remember that and do not be in a hurry to finish it. Powerful communication has got some phases and strategies. As you rightly said, it does not happen overnight. That is where we have launched this Speak to Succeed program. Because at mid level, they feel that after 10 years or 8 years of being in the industry, they are working hard, they're putting more hours, they have sacrificed their personal time for professional work, and still they feel stuck. They're not able to grow. Majorly they're not gaining visibility in front of leadership, and they don't know how to fill that gap, because generally it so happens people keep telling in appraisal discussions you need to improve, but how is the question, right? So here we are at Self Academy helping people to bridge that gap. And I would like to share with you a recent success story where an AVP of a particular organization joined us, where he was passed on for promotion twice. He did not get it. And just within 1.5 months after joining our program, he was immediately promoted to VP because the way he was perceived by the leaders, the way he communicated, there was such a transformational shift, and he got the promotion within 1.5 months. So, this kind of results is what we are looking at. It's a result oriented practical program of 90 days. The 90-day transformational communication program is our Speak to Succeed program from Self Academy. It is delivered in phases. We diagnose the problem first, and then we take them through awareness program, and then we help them implement through our powerful frameworks. And then when they do it in their real life environments, we take the feedback. We have one strong communication win. We want to hear one strong communication win every week after applying the strategies, because we believe that if you cannot improve by 1% every day, then in 90 days, there is no meaning when we say that we are going to bring about that transformation. It cannot happen overnight. So it's a step by step, very practical approach what we do. And we are so fortunate to having witnessed amazing results. And as I told you, we are result oriented academy, and we've been doing this day in and day out. This was the recent success story which we shared with you. I would recommend all the people who are watching this podcast, you can relate to one or the other point or the question which you asked or the answer which I delivered, right? So it's not just in learning it theoretically. Maybe you feel, yes, yes, this is what I feel. Yes, I totally understand what you're telling me. I get it. The idea is an implementation. If you're not an action taker, then nothing will change. I know it's scary. To little bit come out of your comfort zone is also very, very scary. But if you can face it, if you can face it with that fear still in your mind, still having that same fear that I have never spoken in a meeting, now all of a sudden, how can I start speaking and all of that? I would end this podcast with one powerful note. Always speak in the first 1 minute of any meeting room you walk into, any boardroom you walk into, any high stakes conversation you're having. Speak in the first 1 minute. Because the more you wait for your chance to speak, the harder it gets for you to speak, right? So it can never happen. Always grab that opportunity and speak in that 1 minute. And let me also tell you, it need not be a very structured, powerful, planned talk which you can have in the first 1 minute. It cannot happen that way. It can be a simple comment, it can be a simple compliment, or just a mutual exchange of hi, hello, how are you doing? The weather is good today. It can be as simple as that, but get noticed in that first 1 minute. What happens when you do this is you're breaking the ice in your own nervous system, and rest it just flows very easily, right? So try and adopt this. All the best to all those who are watching it, and thanks once again heartily to Prem Kumar sir for inviting me to do this. I had a lovely time conversing with you.
Wonderful, Shilpa madam. I do also thank you for making this a practical and real session. The message is empowering. Careers don't stall because people aren't capable. They stall because capability isn't communicated in the way the leaders can reward. When professionals learn to speak with clarity, structure, calm, and authority, they just don't get noticed, they get trusted also, because
Right.
trust is built when you clearly communicate, is what we all always think. And with
True.
this, there are a lot of comments which are there on the comment chat box, which is predominantly on the YouTube channel. I
Okay.
request you to look at those comments, and as we are top of the hour, we would not be answering the comments right on the session itself. Request you to look at those comments and put your
Sure.
pointers there on the YouTube channel. I see more than 10, 15 comments coming in here. Thank
Okay.
you for that. And with this, we would like to conclude our session. And thank you for joining us today, Shipavan. And it's been great having you here today.
Yes, the admiration is mutual. I'm equally grateful to you for this opportunity. And just one last note, people who are really struggling, people who are really feeling stuck, don't think you're alone. And don't think you're the only one left
Yeah.
behind. There are so many people just like you. And I would be glad to make use of that opportunity to guide you in the right direction, to take you towards the success which you're really capable of, to bring out the true potential which is hidden inside you. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and my profile is Shilpa Srinivas Self Academy. You can connect with me there and join our Speak to Succeed program and bring out the true potential, the effective communicator which is hidden in you, and see that success in your professional journey. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.